The battlefield was quiet, not because the war had ended, not because peace had come. It was quiet because everyone was watching. In the center of the dusty red plains of Kordak 7, two armies stood still. On one side stood the alien invaders, tall, armored, with skin like stone and eyes like fire, the Korans. Their general, Velkor, was a giant. His fists had ended wars. His name brought fear. On the other side, the human army waited, but they did not send soldiers forward. They sent one woman, one human. She walked slowly across the field, no armor, no weapon. Just black clothing, a dark cloak, and a steady walk. She had short brown hair and strange gray eyes. Her name was Alira Dane. Everyone thought it was a trick, a joke, a final act of weakness, but she kept walking. When she reached the middle of the field, she stopped. The dust blew around her boots. Her cloak moved slightly in the wind. She looked up at the giant alien general, who stood a full 3 meters tall. And then, she said calmly, "I'm here." Velkor frowned. "You are the human offering peace?" "I am the one you asked for," she said. He laughed. "Where is your army?" She smiled. "Behind me." The Koran army laughed too. Harsh, cruel, broken laughs. One soldier even dropped his weapon, thinking this must be some kind of human surrender ritual. Velkor stepped forward. His voice was sharp. "Then kneel, human. Show us respect." She didn't kneel. He narrowed his glowing eyes. "I said kneel." She didn't move. So he punched her. The punch was loud. Loud enough to shake the earth. His heavy fist slammed into her face with the strength of a falling ship. Her head turned. With the impact, blood flew from her mouth. She staggered back a step, but she did not fall. She stood still. Her feet dragged slightly in the dirt, but she stayed up. Blood ran from her nose and her lip. Her face was red and bruised, but her eyes never changed. She looked at him, and she smiled. Everyone watching stopped laughing. The Koran general's hand began to tremble slightly. He didn't know why. He had crushed bones with one punch. He had broken skulls. But this human, this small, soft creature, just stood there. "Is that all?" she asked softly. His second-in-command growled, "Kill her, General." But Velkor didn't move. He looked into her eyes and saw something strange. Not fear, not pain, but something else. Like she was waiting. Like something had been started. Far behind the human lines, the command ships began to hum. Machines that had been silent for centuries came alive. Deep under the crust of the planet, old Terran satellites began to move. Eyes that hadn't opened in 100 years blinked. The machines of Earth had felt it. Her pain. And they remembered. Alira wiped blood from her lip. Her voice was calm, almost soft. "You wanted to see Earth kneel, but Earth doesn't kneel. It watches." The Korans looked at each other, confused. "Enough games," one alien shouted. "Take her head." But the general didn't move. Something was wrong. He felt cold. He had never felt cold in his life. Flashback. 5 years ago, Earth.Lire Dane stood alone in a black room. The woman before her wore a gray uniform with no name tag. "You understand what you're volunteering for?" the woman asked. "Yes," Alira said. "You will carry the code inside you. It will bind with your body. The machines will feel your pain. That's the only way they'll wake up. I know. And if the aliens attack first, then they'll learn," Alira said, "what happens when Earth bleeds." Back on the battlefield, the wind grew stronger. V's cell core took a step back. Without knowing why, he had hit the human woman with full force. But now he couldn't stop staring at her. She wasn't healing. But she wasn't dying either. She just stood there. And smiled. Behind her, the ground cracked. Not a big crack, just a hairline split in the dirt. But from it, blue light leaked out, soft, glowing, and alive. The Koran soldiers stepped back. The light grew brighter. "What is that?" Velcor whispered, but Alira didn't answer. She took one slow breath, and the light pulsed with her breath. Orbiting above, the oldest satellite ever built by humans, Sentinel Core 1, lit up. It sent a signal. It reached systems that were thought dead, and those systems began to wake. Not with sound, but with memory. They remembered her genetic code, her pain, her blood, and they obeyed. Back on Kordak 7, Koran weapons stopped working. First, their guns jammed. Then their scanners failed. Then their armor locked up. Soldiers screamed as their tech froze them in place. They looked at each other in panic. Alira turned her head slowly and looked at the entire Koran army. "They always said humans were soft," she said. "They were wrong." General Velcor raised his hand to strike her again, but his arm wouldn't move. He grunted, then growled, then screamed, but his body didn't obey. His knees buckled. He dropped to the ground. Not from injury, from fear. His bones remembered something. Ancient. Something. Deep. Something he could not explain. His ancestors had once seen it too, long before the Koran Empire rose. Back then they called Earth another name. They called it the planet that watches. Alira walked forward. Just one step. The ground trembled. The blue light behind her spread wider. Now, the humans watching from far behind the lines could see it, too. They gasped. Not in fear. In awe. They knew what this meant. The arc signal had been triggered. Flashback. 2 years ago, Alira sat in a cold room beneath the moon's surface. The instructor spoke. The arc was Earth's last defense. It is not a weapon. It is a memory. It waits for one thing: recognition. Alira asked, "Recognition of what?" The instructor answered, "Of pain, of sacrifice. It needs to feel something real." "And then what?" she asked. "Then it remembers who we are." Back on Kordak 7, Velcor was on his knees. He didn't understand. He was stronger. He had more troops. He had more firepower. And yet, he was begging. "Please," he said, voice shaking. "What are you?" Alira looked down at him. "I'm human." In the sky, more signals flashed. Other systems answered. Hidden Terran vaults across the galaxy responded to her blood, her signal, her pain. The machines had names once: Shroudbreaker, Voice of Silence, Ash Sentinel, the Echo of War. Now they were waking, and the Koran Empire was the first to see them, but not the last. Other species watched from hidden satellites. Some feared Earth. Others had forgotten it even existed, but none of them were ready for this. A woman stood still, took a punch, and broke a galactic empire with a smile. As the dust blew over Kordak 7, the last sound heard from the Koran side was the sound of weapons dropping. Not fired. Drop. Because they knew this wasn't a war. This was a warning. And Earth had just whispered it. The Isa Likor couldn't sleep. Not even for a second. He was one of the strongest generals in the Koran Empire. He had led over 20 planetary campaigns. His hands had broken walls. His roars had crushed courage. He had never lost a battle, but now he couldn't sleep, because every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, that human. That smile. The Korean camp was tense. Soldiers whispered in low voices. Lights flickered. Machines didn't respond. Even the ground beneath their boots felt strange, too soft, too quiet, like it was listening. Their weapons still didn't work. Their scanners showed only static. Something invisible was crawling through their tech systems. Not a virus, not sabotage. Something old. Something. Watching, General Velcor sat inside his war tent, armor off, head in his hands. His knuckles were bruised from the punch he gave her. But his pride hurt more. She should have fallen, cried, screamed, but she stood there, bloody, calm. Smiling. Why would she smile? His second-in-command, Sarth, entered quickly. "General, we have a problem." Velcor looked up, tired. "Another one?" Sarth nodded. Zura, the psychic reader from Squad 9, she's in the medical pod. She collapsed. What happened? She tried to read the human's mind from a distance. Velcor stood up slowly, and Sarth's voice shook. She started screaming, and she hasn't stopped. Inside the med tent, Zura was locked in a quiet, glowing pod. She rocked back and forth, eyes wide, mouth open, but no sound came out anymore. Her claws had scratched deep lines into the walls. Her body was shaking. The alien medic said only one thing. She saw something she wasn't meant to see. Back at the human base, Alira Dane sat alone in a glass room. Blood still dried on her face. Her left eye was purple from the strike, but she didn't ask for help. She didn't ask for water. She just sat waiting watching. Captain Marlowe, leader of the human command, entered the room. "You all right?" he asked. Alira nodded once. "Do you know what you triggered out there?" Again, she nodded. Captain Marlowe lowered his voice. "The ARC signal didn't just activate Kordak 7 systems. It hit Earth, Luna. Even Mars Vault 6 lit up for a second." "I know," she said quietly. He studied her for a moment. "And you're not scared?" She finally looked at him. "They need to be more scared than we are." Meanwhile, under the Koran camp, strange things were happening. The ground wasn't behaving like normal dirt. It vibrated sometimes very softly, like a breath. And at night, small lights blinked under the soil, like stars buried in the ground. One brave technician, curious and foolish, dug into the dirt with his claws. He didn't find anything, but when he pulled his hands out, his fingers were gone. No blood. No pain. Just gone. And on his arms were strange marks, ancient letters in a dead Terran language. He screamed. "It touched me. I didn't even see it." Then he fainted. El Corps sent a scout team underground. Only one soldier came back. His report: "There's something sleeping under us. Something huge, and it's breathing." The general stared at the report. "You mean an animal?" "No, sir, a machine." The alien officers began to argue. "We should retreat. This is human trickery." "No, this is not human. This is something else. Maybe the planet is alive." "No, the planet is dead." One officer slammed his fist on the table. "Then explain the breathing." Silence, because none of them could. Alcor stood and growled. "Enough fear. She is one woman. She is flesh and blood. I will end this." But someone began. "No," he shouted. "Bring her to me." Back at the human base, Alira's cum device buzzed. A voice came through. "They want to speak." Again, alone. Alira looked at Captain Marlowe. He nodded once. "Go." The next meeting took place in the same field. No armies. Just her. And VHL-KOR. This time, the general wore no armor. His massive body was covered in scars, and his eyes were darker than before. He stared at her for a long time before speaking. "You didn't block the punch." "No," Alira said. "You wanted me to hit you?" "Yes." He took a step forward. "Why?" She looked him straight in the eyes. "Because the machines don't wake for words. They wake for pain." He blinked. She added, "And only if the pain is real." He laughed, but it was a weak sound. "You're bluffing." "I'm not. They're just stories," he said. "Old human myths." Alira's voice stayed calm. "Those myths used to burn stars." A low hum rose from the ground. Velcor felt it under his feet. A soft vibration, like a heartbeat. He looked down. "What is that?" Alira answered. "It's listening." "To what?" "To see if I'm still in pain." Suddenly, a beam of light shot into the sky from the human base, bright and fast. It split into 5 pieces and curved toward the clouds. A moment later, the Koran command ship in orbit sent a panic signal. "Unknown Terran tech just hacked our core AI." Then silence. All communication was gone. The orbiting ship was now dark. Dead. Back. On the field, Velcor's hands were shaking. Who are you? He asked again. I already told you, Illyra said. I'm human. But what does that mean? He whispered. She stepped forward. And the sky grew darker. The sun dimmed, only slightly, but enough for Velcor to notice. His eyes widened. You're blocking the sun? No, she said. We didn't do that. Then who did? The Ark. Suddenly, loud cracking noises echoed around the battlefield. The ground near the Koran camp split open. Metal pillars rose from the soil, tall, black, and humming. One by one. Hundreds of them, like a forest made of steel and light, each one pulsing with blue energy. Sarth, the second in command, watched in horror from the camp. He whispered, It's not just one machine, it's a city. And he was right. The Ark wasn't a weapon. It was a buried Terran city. Hidden, sleeping. Waiting. General Velcor took 2 steps back. I didn't mean to start this, he said. Lyra didn't answer. I was following orders, he added quickly. This isn't my fault. Still, she said nothing. Then he fell to his knees. I didn't know, he whispered. Please, make it stop. Illyra finally answered. You hit the earth when you hit me. And then she walked away. Inside the Koran camp, panic turned to chaos. Weapons exploded in their holders. Food supplies turned to ash. Tanks melted into sand. All their advanced alien tech turned off like a switch. Soldiers screamed. Some dropped to the ground, covering their ears as a low sound entered their minds. It was a voice, speaking in a strange, ancient Terran language. Even though they couldn't understand it, they felt the meaning. We remember. Zura, the psychic, stopped screaming. She opened her eyes in the med-pod. She whispered something with cracked lips. The medic leaned close. What did you see? She answered softly. It wasn't her we should fear. It's what follows her. Then her eyes rolled back and she died. On the other side of the planet, a black cube buried beneath the oceans began to rise. It hadn't seen light in over 10,000 years. Now it was awake. Inside it, millions of metal pieces started moving, reconnecting, thinking. Preparing. The old Earth code still lived in every wire, and they had all felt Illyra's pain. Kordak 7 was not quiet anymore. The ground trembled every few hours. The sky no longer held its usual light. The Koran camp was in ruins, not from war but from fear. Their weapons were useless. Their ships were silent. Their proud empire had no answers, and one human woman had done this. Not with a gun, not with a bomb, but with pain. The Koran soldiers had started leaving. First the younger ones, then officers. Some even dropped their badges and walked into the desert. No one stopped them. General Velcor stayed. He couldn't leave, not because he had orders, but because something inside him had cracked. He had hit the human once, and now everything he knew was falling apart. Far from the battlefield, a message replayed over and over inside the broken Koran command ship above the planet. Warning, Terran pain signature detected. Legacy protocols re-engaged. That signal had not been heard in over 10,000 years. No alien language could stop it. No firewall could block it. It was a seed planted long ago, and now it was growing. Illyra Dane stood near the rising pillars of the Ark. She watched them hum and glow. Metal towers formed one by one, shaping an old Terran structure buried under the planet. The machines didn't speak with voices, but she understood them. They were listening to her. Heartbeat. To her breath. To her blood. Every second she stayed alive. They remembered more. Captain Marlowe stood beside her, staring at the rising city. How far will it go? Illyra didn't answer right away. Then she said, until it remembers everything. Marlowe looked down. And what happens then? She turned her gray eyes toward him. Then the galaxy will remember what humans are. Across the stars, other species began to notice the change. In the Diari system, old machines began to hum. In the ruins of Hollow Earth, Long-dead satellites woke up and started transmitting. The moon of Ravak-Stu, an old Terran beacon that no one could turn off, began flashing again. Everywhere Earth had once reached was stirring. Back on Kordak 7, Velkor walked through the wreckage of his once great camp. His soldiers didn't salute him anymore. Some ran when they saw him. He couldn't blame them. He could still feel the impact of her eyes. Her pain hadn't broken her. It had broken him. He stopped at the edge of a crater, the one that appeared the day after he hit her. Inside it was a black monolith. A smooth, towering stone with no markings. It hadn't been there before. No one saw it rise, but it pulsed softly. Like a living thing, Velkor reached toward it. But before he touched it, a voice whispered in his mind, "This is not for you." He stepped back, shaking. Flashback, Earth's deep system vault. 14 years earlier, a group of Terran engineers stood around a sleeping girl. Her name, Alira Dane. She was 5 years old. The lead scientist, Dr. Caro, whispered to the others, "This one's nervous system is perfect. She feel everything. No blocks, no dead zones. Won't that break her?" "No," Caro said. "It will connect her." "To what?" "To the Ark." Back on Kordak 7, the Ark spoke again, not with words but with symbols rising into the sky. Blue lines and floating patterns formed above the towers. All around the field, humans watched quietly. Aliens, hiding in the distance, used stolen tech to record what they could. And across the galaxy, everyone asked the same question: "What does it mean?" Captain Marlowe spoke softly. "It's a message, isn't it?" Illyra nodded. "What's it saying?" She looked at the blue lights moving above her, and she whispered, "It says we remember." In orbit, the Terran system reconnected to Mars Vault-6. A signal bounced back, unlocking files sealed for 12,000 years. Inside were videos, voices, and data, all showing the last time the Terran machines had awakened. They called it the Silent Age. During that age, over 45 alien empires disappeared in 10 years. No war, no fire, just silence. One by one, gone. The signal was active again. Galactic governments panicked. Treaties were read. Old lies were uncovered. They had told their people Earth was harmless. A forgotten planet, a failed species. But they were wrong. So wrong. Back in the human base, an old general from Earth's command center spoke via hologram. "Alira," he said, "we didn't think the Ark would respond to you so strongly." She replied, "I didn't think it would either." "You're not scared?" She looked into the camera. "Not for myself." "Then for who?" She said, "For them." That night, Alira sat alone outside the camp. The stars above were brighter than ever. The wind was gentle, but the ground was warm, like something below was breathing. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Are you still there?" And in reply, a soft blue light rose around her. It wrapped around her arms and face like gentle vines. The Ark was listening. Flashback, training room. Luna Station. 10-year-old Alira stood surrounded by needles. They pierced her arms, her back, her chest. She didn't cry. The scientist spoke. "The more pain you feel, the more you'll connect." "Why?" "Because the Ark doesn't trust anyone who hasn't bled." In the Koran ruins, Velkor finally broke. He called his empire, begged them to listen. He shouted into the communicator, "Stop the invasion. Call off the fleets. You don't understand. We've woken something." But they laughed, they thought. He had gone mad. Because no one remembered Earth's true history, except Earth. Alira walked back to the center of the field. Alone. The pillars around her rose higher now. They weren't machines anymore. They were sentinels, guardians of the Ark's memory. And they only obeyed one thing: pain born from truth. She stood in the center and closed her eyes, and she whispered, "You can wake up now." All across Kordak 7, the Ark answered. The Earth split gently. And from beneath it, Black shapes rose, not weapons. Not ships, but statues, each one shaped like a human, tall, proud, armored in strange metal. They stood in perfect silence. But they watched. Just like her, one Koran scout tried to fire at the nearest statue. His gun exploded in his hand. His body vanished without sound, without flame, just gone. The statue's head turned slightly. No face. No mouth. Just a silver surface. And two glowing eyes. Watching. Captain Marlowe spoke. What are they? Elira answered. Old guardians. Of what? Of pain. He looked at her. She looked back and said, I am just the message. They are the memory. That night, the stars above Kordak 7 changed. New stars appeared. Moving stars. Machines. Ships. Old Terran fleets that had once gone silent, now returning home, answering the Ark's call. The galaxy wasn't ready. Because Earth hadn't come with fire. It had come with pain. And the machines that fed on it. The galaxy was silent, not because it didn't know what was happening, but because no one knew what to say. One human woman, hit once by an alien general, had awakened something older than fear. The machines of Earth, the Ark, had begun to rise. They didn't fire weapons. They didn't roar in battle. They simply stood. And watched. And remembered. On Kordak 7, the statues were everywhere now. They had grown taller, stronger. Some stood inside craters. Others walked silently across the land, leaving glowing footprints behind. They did not speak, but they saw everything. Some had faces, others did not, but all of them turned their heads. When Elira walked by. She was their spark, their voice, their pain. In the Koran War Council far away, chaos filled the room. Call back the fleets. Destroy the Ark before it spreads. No, we should study it, control it. One old admiral stood up and slammed his hand on the table. You fools hit the wrong human. This wasn't a warrior. She was a key. They stared at him. General Velcor struck her once, he said, voice shaking. And now 100 ancient machines are awake. One officer laughed nervously. They're just relics. No, the admiral replied. They're judges. Back on Kordak 7, Velcor sat on the edge of the field. His hands were dirty. His face was thin. He hadn't eaten in days. A storm rolled over Kordax-7. But the rain never touched Elira. The dark clouds poured water on the dead land, soaking the broken Koran tents and shattered machines. But not a single drop fell on her. It was like the storm respected her or feared her. She stood alone in the center of the field, surrounded by tall black statues. They had no names, no voices, but they leaned slightly toward her, like giant heads listening to a whisper. Ark was fully awake now. It had not moved to attack. It had not launched ships. It had simply risen, and the galaxy was already trembling. Inside the human base, Captain Marlowe watched reports fly across the screens. Star systems were blinking out, not from battle, but from something else. Silence. Ships arriving at old Terran beacons were vanishing. Entire communication networks were being swallowed. Not hacked, not jammed. Forgotten. Marlowe turned to the Ark interface and whispered, "Why?" The machines answered with one soft line across the screen. She felt it first. Far away, on the Koran homeworld, high priests gathered in secret rooms. For centuries, they had denied Earth stories called them myths, fairy tales, ghost tech. But now they prayed. They lit blue fires and chanted old alien languages, begging for guidance. Then one of the priest oracles stood up suddenly, eyes wide, and screamed, "Even gods don't want her blood." He fell to the floor, dead. General Velcor was not a religious man, but he believed in strength. Now he could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face after he hit her. Not broken, not crying. Smiling. She let him, not because she was weak, but because she was chosen. He walked through the Arc field in silence. He passed the towering sentinels. None stopped him. But none moved either. Then he saw her. Alira Dane. Still. Calm. He dropped to his knees. "Please," he whispered. "Tell them to stop." She didn't answer. He lowered his head into the dirt. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "I didn't know." She looked down at him. "It's not about me anymore." Flashback, Earth, Arc Core. Lab. Dr. Caro stood in a glass room. Alira, 15 years old, lay in a tank filled with soft blue liquid. Wires ran into her spine, her heart, her skull. An assistant asked, "She volunteered for this?" Caro nodded. "She's not like other humans." "Why?" "She doesn't cry when it hurts. She listens." "To what?" "To the ones beneath." The galaxy's ancient species began sending envoys. The Deari, the Brannox, the Catharial, had once tried to conquer Earth in the old days. Now, they sent ships with white flags. They approached Kordak 7 slowly, using only old Terran signal codes. One by one, they landed far outside the Arc's glow. And one by one, they waited. None dared walk into the field. None dared speak to her. In orbit, Mars Vault 6 sent its final message before going dark. Arc Core complete. Key confirmed. Judgment begins. Then silence. No more Earth. Bases would speak. The Arc now controlled them. Alira didn't. But it followed her. Alira stood near the original monolith, the one that had appeared after the punch. She placed her hand on it, and it melted into light. Inside, she saw her own face. Not from today. From thousands of years ago. The same face. Different names. Different lives. But always her. Captain Marlowe appeared behind her. "Is that you?" "I think it's all of us," she said softly. "Every one." "They chose before me." Marlowe asked, "What does that mean?" She didn't turn. "I'm not the first key. Just the last one they needed." Far under Kordak 7, the final arc chamber unlocked. It was not full of weapons. It was full of seats. Empty thrones. Shaped like humans. Each one glowing. Only one was filled. The one with Alira's name, back in the skies. Strange objects began entering the system. Not ships. Not satellites. But tombs. Black coffin-like structures. Drifting through space. Inside, each was a Terran memory. A soldier. A code. And they were all waking. Not to fight. To watch. Because Alira's pain had told them. Now is the time. Velcor remained on the ground, still kneeling. "I thought we were gods," he whispered. "But even gods fear you now." Alira turned. To him, her voice was low. "You hit a human." He nodded slowly. "You drew blood." He trembled. "And now, the machines remember." From orbit, more Koran fleets appeared ready for war. They had not seen what happened below. They were fresh, confident. They launched missiles at the Fa. Arc field. All of them froze mid-air. Then turned around and returned to the ships that fired them. In silence. The explosions didn't even echo. Inside one of those ships, a young Koran soldier screamed. "They didn't shoot us. They refused to let us attack." And that was the truth. The Ark didn't fight to win. It didn't want war. It wanted the message to be clear. Touch Earth again, and you erase yourselves. One final statue rose at the edge of the field. It looked different. It had a mouth. And it spoke in broken Terran code. "The wound is felt. The pain is real. The price will be remembered." Alira turned toward it and nodded. The statue bowed deeply. Then went still. Even gods don't want her blood, because her pain didn't bring death. It brought awakening. And now, the galaxy had only two choices. Step back. Or be forgotten. The battlefield was empty now. No sounds of war. No running soldiers. No screaming ships. Only wind and whispers. And in the middle of it all, she waited. Elira Dane sat on a broken Koran crate, legs crossed, eyes on the sky. She didn't move. She didn't Speak. The Ark watched with her. The machine stood behind her, black. Tall, patient. And far away. General Velcor crawled across the ground, dragging his broken pride like a dead weight. He wasn't proud anymore. He wasn't strong. He wasn't even a general. Now. He was just another voice begging for mercy. He reached the edge of the Ark field and fell on his face. "Alira," he whispered, coughing. "Please." She didn't turn. "I didn't know what you were," he said louder. "I thought you were weak." Still she didn't speak. "I was wrong," he choked. A nearby Ark sentinel tilted its head slightly. It made no sound, but the message was clear. "You are being watched. In orbit." The Koran command ship burned slowly. No fire. No blast. Just systems dying one by one. Each system shutting off like a candle, even the backup. "Core's gone." The crew whispered. "It's her. It's the human." But the computer showed a different message. Judgment in progress. No interference permitted. Alira finally spoke, but not to him. She spoke softly to the wind. They always speak after it's too late. Velcor pushed his face into the dirt. "I'll do anything, just make it stop." Her voice was flat. "You hit a message, not a person. I was following orders." "The Ark doesn't care about your orders." "I beg you, I'm not in control," she said. His voice broke. "Then who is?" She looked up at the sky. Far beyond Kordak 7. Tomb ships moved through space. Inside each, a memory. Old soldiers. Fallen commanders. The lost voices of Earth. And now, all were awake. None would fight, but none would forgive. In the Galactic Council Hall, the leaders of 12 species argued. "The Ark must be stopped. You can't stop what doesn't move." "Then talk to it." "We tried." One ambassador showed a screen. On it, the Ark's only reply: "We answer to the pain." They didn't understand. They never would. Flashback: Earth, training room. Delta. Ira, age 17, stood in a burning hallway. Flames touched her skin. Pain filled her chest, but she didn't scream. She just whispered, "I see them." Dr. Caro watched from behind glass. "What do you see?" She answered, "Statues, giants. They're waiting for me." "Are they real?" "They will be." Now they were real. The statues on Kordak 7 stood still. But every hour, one new sentinel rose, one new eye opened, one more breath from the Ark, and still. Alira did not move. She just waited. The Koran Empire finally broke. On their homeworld, factories stopped. Shields failed. No enemies attacked. But cities fell quiet. Too quiet. Parents told children stories of Earth. But those stories had no happy endings. Now, Earth was not a planet. It was a punishment. Velcor wept into the dirt. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I'm sorry." Alira looked at him. Her voice held no hate. "No fire. Only truth. I'm not the one you should tell." He blinked. "Who?" She stood up, walked forward, and pointed at the largest sentinel in the field. Its chest opened. Inside, a screen, not a weapon, a mirror. Velcor crawled forward and looked into it. He saw himself, but not as he was now. He saw every war, every lie, every innocent. Blood dropped. Every punch, every scream, all caused by him. He screamed and fell back. The Ark didn't judge. It only showed the truth and let it hurt. Alira stepped away and sat down again. Velcor lay on his back, silent. The sentinel closed. Captain Marlowe spoke over comms. "The galaxy wants to surrender." "To who?" Alira asked. "To you." She shook her head. "I'm not their enemy. They think you are." "Then they're not listening." Another envoy landed at the edge of the field. A soft-spoken alien stepped forward. She bowed deeply. "I bring a gift," she said. Ira looked up. The alien held a glowing crystal. "We found this near the old Terran outpost on Zeta Prime. We think it belongs to you." The Ark responded. A soft blue light reached out from one sentinel. It touched the crystal gently. and it sang. Not music, not code, but a soft vibration in the chest. Every human on Kordak 7 began to cry. They didn't know why, but their ancestors did. Arc wasn't a weapon. It was grief made eternal. It carried every scream, every loss, every forgotten cry from Earth's dark past. And Alira's pain? That was the last key. Now the galaxy was watching. Her. Some with fear, some with guilt, some with hope, but no one looked away, because she was waiting, and if she stood again, it meant the next judgment had begun, long ago, before the Council of Species was born, before peace treaties and neutral stars. There was only fire, and Earth burned brighter than all, but then they vanished, those early humans. The galaxy thought they had died. The truth? They hid. And they left something behind. The Arc. And now, because of one act, because Alira Dane bled, the Arc was no longer sleeping. It was remembering. Alira stood at the center of the field, eyes closed. Behind her, the sentinels stood like statues of judgment. The air buzzed softly. Each hour, more signals arrived from distant parts of the galaxy. Messages. Warnings. Panic. But Alira didn't answer them. She was listening to something else. Something older, something buried deep beneath the surface. Under Kordak 7, far below the Arc towers, was a second vault. No map showed it. No species remembered it. It didn't have weapons or ships. It had history, carved into walls, stored in memory code. The truth no one wanted to see. And now, it was waking up. Captain Marlowe stared at the Arc interface. The blue lights had shifted. Now they formed something new. Teeth. Not human teeth. Ancient ones, sharp, bone white, a symbol of the past. He whispered, "What does it mean?" The Arc gave one reply. They fed on war, and they remembered how it tasted. General Velcor had stopped speaking. He sat under a dying tree, watching the sky. His body healed slowly, but his spirit didn't. He had hit the human once. Just once. And now he couldn't even look at his own reflection. Flashback. Earth. 12,000 years ago, a human general stood over a battlefield of stars. Dead fleets floated in orbit. Broken moons bled into space. Beside him, a machine whispered, "We are becoming memory." He answered, "Then let them fear the memory." Back on Kordak 7, a large Arc statue opened, not from the front, but from within. Alira walked inside it. Alone. No one stopped her. No one followed. Inside, there were no walls, just light. And in that light, her memories mixed with others. Thousands. Millions. Every human who had once stood against a galaxy. And in the center, a single word burned across the space: predator. The Arc showed her the truth. Humans weren't hunted in the early wars. They were the hunters. Not for power. Not for land, but to protect their kind from extinction. They evolved fast, fought harder. Fell slower. And when they bled, they changed. Alira gasped as the memory hit her. Her hands trembled, but the Arc held her gently. And whispered, in soft old Terran code, "You were never soft. You were only sleeping." Outside, the sentinels began to move, just slightly. They turned their heads to the stars. More tomb ships were arriving, and now they were opening. Black coffins split like flower petals. And from within walked humans. Real ones, ancient ones. Captain Marlowe shouted, "Get the med teams." But they didn't need help. The ancients walked tall, eyes glowing faint blue. They were not weak. They had not aged. They had waited. For her. Alira stepped out of the Arc statue. Her face looked the same, but her eyes were not. Now they were sharper, clearer. She had seen what her people once were, what they might become again, and she whispered, "We weren't made for peace." On distant council worlds, chaos grew. Ships went dark. Stations fell silent. And in some corners of space, species vanished overnight. No explosions, no noise. Just gone. like a shadow had passed over them. One council leader cried out, "Why is this happening?" Another answered, "Because someone hit a human." A third said nothing. He just pulled out an old Terran file and opened it. Inside was a drawing. Human jaw, smiling, and filled with sharp teeth. Illyra stood before the ancients. They said nothing. They only knelt. She stepped forward, reaching out a hand. They rose, one by one. Together, they looked at the sky. The ark spoke through the wind. The prey remembers the hunter. But the hunter never forgot. Flashback, Galaxy War, Age of Smoke. A Corran leader begged at Earth's gates. "Please, we didn't know," he cried. The machine voice answered, "That is the first truth of war. You never know until it's too late." The same words played. Again now, across KORDAX-7. Every satellite, every line, every screen, all showed. Illyra. Standing. Waiting. Watching. And behind her, teeth made of light. Marlowe asked her, "Is this who we are?" She looked down. Then answered, "It's who we were." "Do we go back?" Illyra shook her head. "That's not my choice." "Then whose?" She looked at the ancients. At the ark. At the stars, and said, "The pain will decide." Velcor stood again. He took off his armor for the last time and walked into the field. This time, not to beg, not to fight, just to stand still. He faced Illyra. "I know now," he said. "Your ancestors had teeth." She nodded. "And we made you use them again." Silence, then a soft hum. The ark replied with one final symbol in the sky. A giant mouth, not open in rage, not closed in peace, but smiling. Waiting. Because the last bite had not yet been taken. The stars began to fall on the third day. Not with fire, not with sound, but quietly, like lights going out one by one across the sky. Worlds turned dark. Ships stopped moving. Empires that had ruled for thousands of years suddenly found themselves forgotten. And the woman who caused it? She never lifted a weapon. She never shouted a word. She simply stood there. Illyra. Dane, the last pain-born key of the ark. She stood barefoot in the cold dirt of Kordax-7, surrounded by the towering sentinels, by tomb ships cracked open, by ancients. Returned from sleep, she said nothing. But the galaxy was screaming. On the Corran homeworld, cities turned off all lights. They called it the Night of Forgiveness. Billions gathered in silence. They no longer denied what had happened. One punch, one woman. And now their fleets were gone. Their leaders were missing. Even their suns looked dimmer. And across the sky, one line appeared again and again. "You struck her. We remember." Captain Marlowe watched from orbit. Earth command was dark now. No orders came. Just one message had arrived hours ago from Luna Base. Written in old Terran code. "Do not stop her." He whispered to himself, "She's not doing anything." But that wasn't true. Illyra was doing everything. Just by standing still. Ancients moved around her like a guard, not protecting her, honoring her. They bowed when she walked. They waited. When she paused, not because she was above them, but because she had done something they could not. She had made the ark feel pain again. And that pain had become memory. Memory had become power. And power had become silence. In the deepest system of the council, one species activated its failsafe. The star pulse. It was meant to erase all Terran signals within 5 sectors. It had never been used. They launched it. It flew. It blinked. It vanished. Ark caught it, not with weapons. But with presence. The star pulse disappeared before it could reach its target. No explosion. Just. Illyra sat now on a flat stone that hadn't been there the day before. It grew from the ground. Shaped by the wavy Arka throne? No, a reminder that she never needed to sit on a throne to rule the sky. Flashback, Earth. 13 years ago, a young Illyra sat crying in a steel room. A doctor watched through a glass window. She hasn't eaten in 3 days, a nurse whispered. She's learning, the doctor said. Learning what? What her silence can do. And now her silence moved star systems. General Velcor stood beside her. He had taken off all signs of rank, no medals, no armor, no voice. He had nothing left to say, because words couldn't fix what he'd started. Council fleet approached the planet, not to attack, but to kneel. Dozens of ships hovered silently over the surface. Lights dimmed in respect. They sent one message. If she asks, we will leave forever. Illyra didn't reply. She just looked at the ground, and the Ark answered for her. The Council ships turned, left the system. Never returned. Illyra stood slowly. The wind moved around her. Her eyes, once soft and wondering, now held something deeper: understanding. Not hate. Not revenge. Not victory. Just understanding. Marlowe called down to her. It's over, isn't it? She looked up. It was over the moment he hit me, she said quietly. Marlowe's voice shook. We didn't mean for this. I know, she replied, but it still happened. The ancients raised their hands, not in war, but in signal. One by one, they walked to the edge of the field and disappeared into the soil. Back into the Ark, back into memory. Waiting again, because they had done their part. Now the galaxy knew. Flashback. Terran Archive, year -402. A machine voice speaks. Do not remember us for what we built. Remember us for what we refuse to become. If one day we are awakened, it is not for conquest. It is because pain returned. And pain remembers. Illyra walked to the first monolith, the one shaped by her blood. She placed her palm on it. It melted into dust. Then the towers followed. Then the sentinels. One by one, the Ark folded back into the ground, leaving no sign it ever risen. No ships flew. No metal moved. No explosions. Just stillness. And Illyra stood, alone once more, but not weak, not forgotten. She was now a living part of the Ark. She had given it what it needed most, a wound, and from that wound, the stars had fallen. General Velcor bowed his head. What now? She looked at the horizon. Now we leave them a choice. To do what? To listen. In the quiet that followed, the Ark left one final message in the sky, spoken in every language, across every system, etched in light. She never raised her hand. But you still broke. We did not come to fight. We came to remember. And with that, the field grew quiet. Illyra disappeared. Some say she returned to Earth. Others say she became part of the Ark. But every species knows her name now. They speak it carefully, with respect. With fear, and always in silence, because she taught them one final truth. You don't have to scream to make stars fall.